Hi, I'm Keith Baranowski with SAP's Business Network team. And today I'm going to be meeting with an outstanding group of supply chain professionals who have all undergone transformation initiatives at their organizations. All right, well, why don't we start off with the intros for our illustrious panelists today, and we'll just go left to right. Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are, who you work for, and a little bit what you do there.
Yeah, happy to. Melissa Goodwin, I work for Ecolab. I'm the Senior Vice President of our global water supply chain. So my team leads the plan, make, buy, and ship for our water division globally. Been with the company 15 years. Happy to be here today.
Great.
I'm Chris Nielsen. I'm with Toyota Motor North America, and I am our Chief Supply Chain Officer and Chief Quality Officer.
Excellent.
Dan Bartel. I'm the Chief Procurement Officer at American Airlines. Happy to be here.
I'm Johnny Ivanyi, responsible for the Center of Excellence of Bear Crop Science.
Paul Bouvy, I'm our Enterprise Supply Chain Leader and also leading our supply chain transformation at Owens Corning.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Raquel Purcell. I'm the Chief Transformation Officer for North America for L'Oreal.
Excellent. Well, I mean, once again, this shows the value of the NACES conference. We have a great mix and great diversity across industries, across roles. So really looking forward to hear what you have to say. And, we'll start off, and we heard, Raquel, right in your title is transformation. I think we've probably heard it 100 times over the last 2 days. Indeed. So, why don't we talk about transformation? Because it can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people. It could mean transformation on a technology perspective, a process technology perspective, or it could be multiples of this. So, let's start with you, Paul. How do you think about transformation? How do you balance people, process, technology? And I think you just finished a recent transformation project with Sentinel, right?
Yeah, so one thing, we have a mantra on Owens Corning, which is our journey of transformation is simple, standard, and automate. So that's the mantra we live by. And how are we going to do that? Well, that's going to go across all functions, not just supply chain. But sometimes I remind people to start with the basics on why transform in the first place. So what is the business value? What is the return on the project we're going to work on? So you got to start with the basics there. And then from there, this whole people, process, technology, and you kept using tools. I like that. That was a different approach to it. I think to transform, you're going to have to work on every one of those equally, right? Every transformation is going to have, your people are going to be part of it. Ideally, you bring them with you and help you with it from shop floor up, right? It needs to be with everyone. And then you have to build new processes. A lot of this new technology with AI, I mean, we can say that word a lot, but it is going to change how we do work. And so our processes are going to have to evolve with it. And so, yes, people are going to be part of it, our processes are going to adapt, and the technology is going to change, and it's probably going to keep changing. So whatever we do needs to be adaptable in the future. But ultimately, it should still go back to that return on investment and business value to our customers and shareholders.
Absolutely. So we talk about transformation as an enabler of growth.
Yes.
Right? So we are obsessed with growth. And so we are transforming. And in fact, we have a term, perform while you transform. Okay. Right? So we have the responsibility to do both. And so your eye on the future and in shaping the future and making the investments in people, process, and tools powered by data, but carving the future, right? And enabling the future of the company. So we should be out in front, appreciating the strengths of the company inside, but chartering a big, bold future.
Let me ask you a follow-up question to that, just with your transformation and how it works. So you're in the transformation office.
Yes.
So perform to transform. Does that mean the people who are currently in, let's just call them the lines of business, whether it's procurement or supply chain or HR or whatever it might be, do you include them and have them continuing to do their jobs while they're working on the transformation project, or is that your team doing the transformation? How do you balance that part?
Yes and yes and yes.
Okay.
Everybody's a part of it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. That's right. No, it's about building a community or an ecosystem, right? That's committed to transforming, and we're at different stages of maturity.
Right.
So, and different businesses have different capabilities. We are driving from the center an investment in the people side of change. So, change management. I just spoke about this on stage, but change management as a function, right? Being intentional in the people side of change to coexist alongside of the investments in the technology. It's super important. So that's our role from the center.
Okay.
So we're driving the people in the process, but we're doing that then in partnership with the business. And it is a yin yang, right? So in some cases, if that capability does not exist, we step in and we provide it. In other cases, we're responding to a stated compelling case for change or an important problem statement. A big part of transformation is a good problem statement, and then a big, bold ambition for the future. So, and we all have a role to play in that.
Does anybody else have a formal transformation office like they have at L'Oreal, or is it more baked into the business?
Not a formal transformation office. I would say we have some centers of excellence, like a planning and a safety and et cetera. But I would add a couple of things. I loved, Raquel, when you had data as the fourth piece, because that's what I was thinking the whole time as well. It's not just people, process, tech, or tools. Data has to be there, or like it doesn't happen. The other thing I was really thinking about with making sure you know your problem you're trying to solve, because I do feel a lot with technology that we're chasing the solution with some cool tech, and then we forget what we're trying to solve, and we have this technology and it didn't actually solve our problem, and so now that we're back to it, right? So I think super clear on what's your problem, having the processes and the people to come along with it, and then you layer tech. You don't solve it with some fancy technology if you have a bad process or your people aren't skilled to change their job, or kind of all of that together.
When you define the goal or the problem statement, are you defining it from a process perspective to say, here's this process, here's what's broken? Do you go all the way down to quantify that so everything's quantified?
I think you have to, right? It's the day. I mean, it depends maybe what your output you're trying to do and maybe what your investment is that you're trying to get, right? So, I mean, like probably everyone around the table, there's some thresholds your company has on an ROI for an investment and all that. So I think if you're doing all that really well, whether it's a monetary benefit for us, it's a lot of safety benefits, and others as well here. And so really being very clear on your benefits and what is it accomplishing, could be money, could not be. But I think you have to do the whole way, because if you do, then you really help the team understand, why are we doing this? Which then helps your change management, right?
I think you also need to be sensitive on top, though, that there's investments in big transformations, Raquel, I'm sure, that are more enabling and don't necessarily
100%.
stand alone, have a direct return,
100%.
right? Which requires a broader big picture story that the leadership buys into, right? And also just like management courage to go forward, lean in, make those investments and trust that on the other end you're going to get the results that you expect.
Yeah, need the roadmap of that, because it is tough, right, when you're asking for that, and it's an enabler, right? That's not an easy task, and they don't always get the yes on the first try, right?
Never use the word enabler is my first tip.
Yeah, well, that's a great solution. But yeah, I think that's the way to go. You have to, we always think about you got to build the foundation, or nothing else kind of stacks on top of it.
In terms as a C-level executive, especially on some of these initiatives that may be a little bit more broader, they don't have a hard dollar amount. Do you get consensus at the C-level and push it down? How do you go about doing that?
I think it depends. But first and foremost, as a leader, and as a new leader, I'm less than 2 years in the company. One of the keys to success is earning the trust of the leadership, earning the trust of the people that make the capital allocation decisions. That's a super important step, right? If you don't have that, good luck getting your enabler in investment, right? But I think every company is a bit different in terms of how they make those kind of decisions. And it's definitely easier in larger companies with more centralized decision-making processes to get to a decision. But also in a company like ours, we're a single-digit margin industry, really, as an operator. So every penny that goes out the door is really highly scrutinized. So you've got to have a watertight business case, and you've got to show the results at the end, or whatever trust you do have will be lost for the next time.
Yeah, Keith, and I'll add to that. I think it's important for the transformation leaders to kind of measure the appetite of the company. Like in our case, we really wanted to drive transformation first through supply chain. And by doing that, supply chain, of course, touches every aspect of the company. And so we started a little bit small and began to prove the value, create interest, create excitement. And then, that's really enabled us to expand for it to be company-wide. I don't think we would have been successful if we would have tried to convince the enterprise as a whole of the need to transform. We felt we had a burning platform. And we could make the case, but our ultimate goal was always to drive transformation more broadly.
And in starting or doing it in supply chain, were you kind of an exemplar for some of the other groups that maybe finance or HR or someone said, let's look at what supply chain did, let's follow that, and did that happen?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And we felt the kind of the weight of that responsibility, right, as the organization that was leading that. But we built credibility by being able to build capabilities along the way. Raquel, I think you mentioned this as well. We financed through value creation throughout. So the finance people love us, right? It wasn't the give us this money and 3 years later we may have something for you. As we built capabilities, we delivered on the value, and that created credibility, which then has allowed us to have access to greater funding.
Which I think is so important, right? The work needs to be hardwired into the success objectives and the business objectives of the company. It's not a nebulous place for, although experimentation is important and innovation is a part, certainly, of our L'Oreal DNA. And magic has come out of sometimes not having a clear problem statement, but a fantastic idea that then translates into something amazing for the consumer. So both can be true, but hardwiring that into the business requirements and the business objectives is key. It's key. It can't be just some nebulous standalone, or it won't work.
I want to dig into something you said there, and I was actually talking to someone after yesterday's sessions, and very infrequently was the word customer mentioned. From the president, and you just said consumers who are your customers at L'Oreal. So in these initiatives, how often is the customer front and center?
We call customer obsession. That is the vision that we have for 2030, right? Everything that we are doing is just how can I improve, in my case, the farmer, right? Because I'm also there, you have 3 different units around the part of the crop science. But it's how can I improve the experience of the customer? Now the competition, you can have a similar product like everybody here, but the customer experience make a big difference, right? So it's how you can improve the experience of the customer and be efficiency in the way that you deliver this to the customer, the product, whatever you're doing. This is what we do right now in Bayer, right?
And one of the things we've done is I've actually met with our customers and we've talked about what we're doing and showing them that this is going to help us be a better deliverer to get you your material on time so you can go build your house and get it installed and do it on time. And this way they see the change we're doing, but also at the same time lets them start to understand, well, if they go through the same change, then the two of us are going to work more efficiently together. And I think the more we share together between suppliers and customers, I think that's going to help in this transformation for everybody, right?
It's a trap, though. I mean, you can, within your 4 walls, innovate a product or a new transformation or something and not think about anybody else but in your walls, right? Because it's just a widget or a piece of data or a process, right? So we've all seen it. We've all probably done it, right? It's pretty easy, right? Yeah. Then you're amazing, right? Like it's everyone's, I know, but we've all done it. But I think, it's how do you differentiate yourself and learn what they really want? And I think the biggest piece is for us, not only with the customer, but even with maybe our commercial partners, it's how do you talk about it in the right story, right? What's the language and the discussion you're having that the customer cares about, right? They don't care about my internal metric. They don't care about my, productivity savings unless they're sharing it, right? For us, we really talk about total value delivered. That's kind of our kind of slogan, and we believe in it so much that we're willing to split the cost and split that savings and stuff with the customer. But I think that's a piece of it, like what do they really care about and want and they'll pay for, but also how do you talk about it with them? Because, you have your own language, and if you can't really tell the story, you're not going to get their buy-in for it either.
I think your question was a great one to bring up that word customer, because I know at least at Toyota, in our supply chain organization, we've been guilty of not being explicit in saying that's the objective. So we very intentionally said, we want to create a customer-centric supply chain.
Okay.
And by doing that, it's kind of a magic word, because then it unifies the whole company, right? Who can be against wanting to serve the customer more? But in the past, I think we just kind of assumed that everybody knew that supply chain ultimately touched the customer. But, we weren't saying that clearly enough.
Yeah, and it's interesting because in some cases, the transformation is what is fueling our ability to meet the customer's needs.
Right.
So we are deeply invested in driving consumer insights, right? We want to know our customer and consumers better than anyone. So we have transformations that are creating capabilities that allow the people inside of our organization that are customer facing to be that much more effective. Now, do they bring voice to the transformation? Sometimes and sometimes not, right? But it is empowering them, right? It is enabling them to drive incredible results for that customer, for that consumer, and then therefore for us as a company. So, in the beauty business, right, we are all about the consumer. I mean, that is our lifeline. So, for sure.
We have a lot of B2C companies represented around the table here, and I really like your comments about customer centricity and how in Toyota you've put with the circle, put the customer at the middle, and just the impact I can imagine that has on people's mentality just kind of naturally forces you to think about them more, right? I'll offer one other topic from American Airlines. Last year we created a new position called the Chief Customer Officer. A really nice lady named Heather Garboden stepped into that role. And she's the voice of the customer in the C-suite in every decision that we make now, right? And she's setting a strategy and a vision. And more, our decisions are more and more being oriented now as leaders around the impact on the customer. Whereas before it was more, what's the impact on cost? What's the impact on reliability, which you guys want low-cost tickets, you want reliable flights, right? But there's so much more that you want from an airline that we weren't necessarily giving you, and now it's starting to come more and more.
We appreciate this.
Yes.
We do it for you.
I want to circle back to something that Paul said right at the beginning of talking about your transformation. You mentioned the word standard or standardization. I'm curious for the table, how do you see standardization coming into play for transformation, especially in light of how AI works? Can you get to one size fits all to make it all work? Is that a requirement? Is it a nice to have? What do y'all think?
It's an interesting balance. I think it is inherently okay that it doesn't all fit in one box. But again, I think the trap is 37 exceptions and everybody goes and builds their own bot and their own this and their own that. And you need structure because you also have to govern it. And you have to have the right security and govern and however. And so I do think there is a balance of what do you really need? Again, I go back to what's the problem you're trying to solve? Is it like something else? Can you utilize the same thing? Do you really need to have 13 additional steps? Does it really add value? Right. I think that's why I really think about get the process first or like know what it is before you put some tech on. Because we've had a trap, for us at the company where we had a transformation with some technology and a transportation management system. They literally told the supplier, customize the entire suite to our process. And it was not a good process to start with. So they customized the entire solution to our process. They don't support it anymore because it's customized. It doesn't work well, and we don't like them because of it. But it's like, okay.
I'm sure you're the only one at the table that's made
We're not
that.
happy about it, right? Like we've all, but I mean, it really is about, yes, do you have to have an exception? You absolutely do, right? I have a private fleet. If we're gonna do another, TM, like I have to be able to support a private fleet. but I can't have 37 other exceptions type of thing. So
We
that's
had
just
a similar situation with the TMS, by the way, and we had the philosophy 80-20. So let's stand at least 80%, and you're going to have 25% of the requirement depend on the country, right? Because you have different go-to-market, different structure in the country, but at least you try to get some standardization. Sometimes standardization is bureaucracy, right? But you need to get something. Otherwise, you're going to have you are not going to have a standard solution across the globe. And that's what everybody's looking here. Right?
Yeah, in some cases, standardization also enables speed,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
And so we try to be standard to maximize our ability to delight the consumer. And then the point where being different creates incremental value, we are absolutely open to that, right? Because we're a very entrepreneurial company.
Right.
It's a part of our DNA. But to your point, it's a balance. So we're trying to appreciate, because speed is super important in the average life cycle of our business. It's very emotional, and
Right.
so we need to be able to go to market with excellence as it relates to quality, but fast. So speed plays a very important role. So the more standard you are, the faster we can go, and then you get to the point where the value prop, if it brings delight to be different, then we're here for it.
But I love what you said value, because then it's worth it.
Correct.
It's worth the investment,
Correct.
the time, the money, or the governance, whatever it is. If it added value, I think if we really looked at it all and said, okay, how much value do they all add? They don't, right? So for there, it's totally worth it.
Right.
In our case, the lack of standardization in one aspect of the business created the opportunity for us. So probably a lot of people, you think about Toyota production system,
Sure.
lots of standardization. That's all
Absolutely.
true.
Yeah, you're right.
Global systems for production and financials and procurement. But the way vehicles are distributed and sold are different in each global region. Europe is different than US is different than Japan. That created the opening for us. And we could begin our initiative based on that uniqueness in North America, build a capability and a technology, platform that now can be, modified globally. But without that, if we were waiting for, some system to come from Japan, it never would have happened. The technology, the transformation initiative, that's all happening here. And, because of that, now we're able to create something that ultimately can be deployed across the globe.
Yeah, I do want to touch a little bit on the global aspects, and I think Johnny, you said it was obvious in Toyota as well. How is it taken? For example, you're a Japanese company, innovation comes from the U.S. and pushing back to corporate. Was that well accepted? Was there pushback? For you, Johnny, or anybody else? Yeah, I mean, you're a French company.
Yeah.
All right, so so do you find that adoption or willingness to adopt varies across geography? Just some countries are naturally more averse to change or transformation, and how do you deal with that?
It's the culture too,
Delicately.
right? Yeah, delicately, it's the culture, right? I mean, it starts with the culture that, again, change management and how is it going to work in Japan versus Korea or Germany versus Italy or kind of wherever you are. I think for us in our structure, we actually have a market-based structure kind of in the business. It's a global supply chain, but a market structure in order to make sure we match what the market kind of needs and how they'll transform. People are different and what they value are different and how they operate are different. And so I think even if you're global and take out there's different constraints and there's different regulations, but people come with a different background in the culture, and you really need that to understand how you transform.
In our case, it's internal, external, because even internally, you have a different background. By the way, we have a merge between Monsanto and Bayer 5 years ago, American with German company, right? So how you put together the two different mindsets in just one company, right? So it's exactly what you say. Well, headquarters in Germany, but we have another small headquarters in U.S. How is going to be the change management in U.S. or in South America is going to be different? The message is the same, but how can I explain the why, that is how you change, you share how it's going to be the transformation is going to be totally different. Our experience has been like this. Right?
It's a lot easier now than it used to be, I'll say that. Because there's a recognition, I think, that the technology really resides in the U.S. to a large degree, at least in the case of Toyota. And that's allowed us to have, a credibility and an openness and an acceptance, which is different than in the past when we were talking about more traditional automotive technology, where there was more of a desire to, develop that in a central location. Now a more decentralized approach is accepted because it works. It's practical.
Got it.
I'm proud of us, though. What I would say is we're on a journey. We were very siloed, both from a division perspective and zone. And back to the call to action on growth and speed, being clear about where there's opportunities to be one L'Oreal and where that's going to bring important value, particularly cost and speed. But then articulating where are the spaces where the zones have freedom to make modifications. I think comms is an underrated skill that we as leaders need to invest in. I certainly, as a former head of operations, having a comms department, right? That was an investment we made at the latter part of my tenure, but it's so important. This messaging, internal comms, yes, the messaging to our teams, the articulation of the why of what we're trying to solve for, the enrollment to the strategy, super important, and why we're getting something from global. And then, how that translates into impact and benefit locally, and then how we will make the best of that. So
I want to unpack the comms part a little bit. So, hey, during COVID, big change. We're all sitting at home. Now we came back, and you're trying to run these global transformation projects. How do you do the comms? How do you keep that cadence and communication up across a global, multi-language, multicultural team? What techniques or tactics are you all using?
Kel started off well. You have to intentionally care about it. It has to be part of the project plan, and you have to invest in it as much as the implementation of the technology, because you could be right and your project could be amazing, and it could absolutely fail because nobody understands why you're doing it, and they're not on board. So I honestly, we don't value it enough. I really remember a conversation that I had with a leader years ago about just exec comms, and I think I said I didn't have time to put that much time into it, and he was like, "You chose to not have time." And now in retrospect, couldn't be more right. It is the lifeblood of how you get out, whether again internal or external. It's just so important. The why, how do you bring them along? How do you get some wins so they help you bring others along? But it's just so important. It could make or break.
And that's why I always say internally, it's in transformation, you spend just as much time marketing and hype. Again, the more I've seen people volunteer and want to be part of and do this, and the marketing is really, like you're highlighting, if you don't do it, it's just going to fail. You have to market, you have to let people know what is in it for them, and again, it has to cross borders. It can't feel like we're a big U.S. company. It can't feel like the U.S. is just pushing it to Europe, right?
Absolutely.
This is a journey together. It's not just the U.S. telling you what to do, right?
Even within a country or within the U.S., we had a big transformational project around safety in our bulk chemical space. We have our own private fleet, and they're the best of the best. I truly believe that. But yet they're still human. And so we implemented some technology, we homegrown to help them be better and be safer. And when it rolled out, a lot of them were offended that we thought they weren't safe. How do you think we're not safe? I've been doing this for 40 years, every day. I bleed blue, and you think we weren't safe and you built the technology. And when one of them said that to me, I was like, of course not. I never even thought of that. I'm trying to, you're a human who's got something else going on in their life, and they got 5 more deliveries, and we want to get you some more technology to help you. And we didn't sell it well, clearly, as we started. Now they love it. They're champions. They've integrated it. So for me, it has to be people-centered, tech-enabled, or it's an and, not an or. But when that came to me, I was like, not even in a million years did I ever think that about any of you. But you perceived that right away, so the comms were not there.
And you mentioned about champions. You talk about techniques, and something that we are creating is a champion. You're going to have detractor, you're going to have promoters, and you're going to have people in the neutral. They don't want to move, right? The question is how you move this detractor to be neutral or promoter, because if you had too much detractor, you're not going to have the transformation. So we are creating like a champion that is the people that believe in the transformation. They are in this unit, in this squad, and he's going to be the vocal, say, guy, them explain your language, because maybe my language is not the same language that I speak in different squad or units or countries. So that's why we create this champion, is the guys or people across the globe. They believe in transformation and create this kind of connection with the team.
Yeah. So for us, 2 points, we've embedded comms as a part of the change management curriculum. That was a way to, to kind of get it in there. Still some opportunity, but it's an important start. So that was one. And then the second piece, which I mentioned earlier, on really thinking about a transformation, the same way you launch a product, we launch a program or a new technology or a new way of working. So in that, you do consumer listening. In that, right, you do customer activations. You do, you do campaigns. And that's been a real shift in allowing us to create desire and engagement of the organization on why we're doing what we're doing, and hopefully giving us a better technical right to succeed.
We learned that we really had to up our game in terms of storytelling.
Yes.
And we actually created, and I didn't know how big this was going to become when we first started, 2 cartoon characters, Wallace and Ava, which are now famous names within Toyota that represent customers. And this is an animated video, and we make them every time we have kind of a new capability we're developing. And people within the company, of course we translate this in other languages and the like, can watch that and understand why we're doing it, how it's going to impact customers, but it's in a simple, easy to understand.
And kind of simple way.
You're watching a cartoon, essentially. And I wish I could say I was smart enough to have directed that. The team did that, but it's been wildly successful.
Might steal that from you.
I love that.
I love that.
That's great.
It's really good.
A little
That's
lighthearted,
really good.
get you to learn.
Yes, love that.
Small snippets to get it out. That's the key, because it's all about
that's really
people,
great.
right?
So this is a good bridge. We've been talking about talent, we've been talking about culture and how it impacts transformation. So Johnny, you had mentioned, we have supporters, we have detractors, we have neutral people.
You have distractors.
Detractors.
Everywhere.
So how do you balance? We want to transform, we want to do something new, but we also have these 40-year employees that you mentioned, and taking what oftentimes is just tribal knowledge on how things are done and making sure that is incorporated into the considerations of the transformation. Anybody have any experience around that?
I can share something, and then you can. But we start the transformation first. We believe in the Big Bang, and now we are changing. So why not start with a proof of concept with something small? Is working in North America, and then this team is going to share with the rest of the region, not you, that is the owner of the transformation. This is working, guys. So it's the user persona, the people that is in the field sharing the experience of the transformation. This is a big change that we are doing right now. So how this is just not doing that. It's the long-term plan, but at the same time, start with something small, and then you go step by step. It's a marathon. All transformation is a marathon. It's not a sprint. So that's what I think we are changing right now when I compare a couple of years ago. Share and go step by step, and share what is the benefit. Every cycle we share the benefits and celebrate the wins. Okay, we have here, this is a milestone. What is the next milestone?
I think it's a champion's phrase that you said before. However you kind of want to use that, doing it more of, even a 40-year veteran in the team has a perception and skills and is fantastic at whatever they do. And so how do you get a wide audience of 2 years in, 40 years in, focus group, right? Just learning, and even if, again, and I go back to our space of we're trying to transform and just be even safer than we are. And it was, tell me how this will help you. Tell me, now when we do each release of kind of this technology that we built, it's all about, we need you to pilot it, we'd like you to look at it, give us feedback, give us, actual user interface, because you're on the ground. And we really pivoted a lot based on feedback from them, because they were boots on the ground, and we were doing a lot of this initial design during COVID. And so we're all in our house trying to design this with a team in India, like all of it. And we really kind of missed when we first started. And we're like, tell me feedback. And when they went on the ground, they're like, we're in a basement trying to do a chemical delivery. It's dark and hot. I can't see the phone. Okay, miner's headlamp will get you. We'll do all these things. But I think they could be there again one day or 50 years. And it's about, are they, great employees that have great value, and how do you pull it out of them? Maybe they won't give it to you unless you pull it out. I love the champions idea. I love the wins. I also think it's also about being honest. Right? It was going to deliver X.
100.
You know what? We missed.
100.
So we're going to take another stab at it. I'm sure it seems like you had this.
Same.
Right?
I was waiting for you
Be
to finish,
honest.
right? I think the transparency in the discussion, what we're trying to solve for, how are we pacing, what are we learning, in onboarding them to being a part of the process. At L'Oreal, we also have a pretty high metabolism for change and for agility, and the total employee engagement, like everyone is focused on growth, right? And so we understand that innovation is a part of growth. And so with that comes change. So perhaps our appetite is a little bit higher than most, but we're also awfully honest about, we didn't get that right. But we're going to try it again, because it's the way in which we operate.
We're dealing with a workforce that is 87% unionized, right? And largely set in their ways. And maybe it's a dumb and obvious thing to say, but I'm full of these kind of things. The best way to break through to a population like that in terms of a new way of working is to bring solutions that are objectively better in every possible way.
What's good for them, right?
That is the best thing that you can do, right? It's got to be awesome. And the best example I can think of is aircraft mechanics, right? The old way of working was paper manuals that were in file cabinets along the wall of the hangar, right? Imagine an aircraft hangar with a 777 in it, right? And you're working on an engine, you got to walk over to the edge of the building, look something up in a manual, walk back, crank the wrench, right? Walk back to the wall, enter what you did into a computer terminal. So what do? We give them iPads. Right? The manuals are electronic on the iPads. The maintenance log is on the iPad. They can literally hold it in their hand while they're working on the aircraft. Right? What we were trying to accomplish as a leadership team was efficiency. Right? We need to get more out of this population of very expensive but very good workers. Right? But what happened was we gave them a solution that, in their minds, was so much better in every possible way. Right? And unlimited data and let them have Netflix on the iPad probably helped too.
Hey,
Whatever you can throw in to
some
sweeten the pot.
wins, right? Yeah.
But and that's the phrase I love, the dull, dangerous, and dirty work, right? I mean, it doesn't matter if you're in supply chain, manufacturing. If you're helping remove that type of work, I think everyone's going to join you. I mean, who wants to work in the 130 degrees Celsius or Fahrenheit room? No one. So if we can automate that task out so you don't have to be in there, I don't think a single person's going to complain, right? So I always love that simple mantra.
But I do like it's being honest about that, right? Because I think when we're talking AI or technology transformation, what's my first thought? Am I going to have a job?
Correct.
When the thought really is, this work, some of this work is work that we could automate, which will enable you to do something even better, right? Which is maybe more efficient and more effective, more valuable, whatever that is. But I think if you don't have that conversation, then we're always thinking about what's in it for me and my family and my paycheck and whatever. So I think it's, you got to have the right conversation, and maybe it's then we upskill you because now we need this role that we didn't have before. But if you don't talk about it appropriately, and of course can't share everything at every time, but in the right conversation and the right transparency, that goes a long way.
That really resonates with me. A big part of our employment value proposition, particularly for our hourly team members, is job security. So they trust that if they improve a process, that they'll still have a job.
Sure.
Right? And so when we talk about technology, it's always about technology enabling a human to be able to do the job easier and better and the like. And yeah, I think exactly that. It's
both.
about
It's
building
two,
trust,
right? Yeah.
It's about building trust.
Trust is a very powerful word.
So much.
Yeah, so we've been spending a lot of time talking about tribal knowledge, our tenured employees. Let's pivot all the way to the other side. Let's talk about bringing in early talent. How important is it to have early talent and fresh ideas in a transformation project? And what are you doing to attract younger workers into the supply chain field where, maybe compared to some of the other things out there, it doesn't sound as exciting as other things that they could be doing?
I mean, again, those statistics to say the next generation, if they're not using AI, they're not going to work for you, right? I think getting young supply chain professionals, many of which in school now are also coming in with data analytics degrees attached,
Exactly.
yank those, we have rotational programs. While towards their end of their rotation, bring some into the transformation group, or in the rotation, have them in the transformation group, because they're going to see things in your processes. Again, back to processes, forget the tech. They're going to see things that, again, I just don't see. We've been doing this forever. And you'd be amazed, and these are things we're doing. I mean, I think just getting them involved in the transformation and doing that, you're going to inspire a lot more younger folks to get into your field versus, go to Amazon. Maybe you will come to Owens Corning now for that, right?
But Amazon is a supply chain company.
Yes.
Right? I mean, let's be clear about that. So, right, the skill sets that you're getting in supply chain, again, we pull up to the table, right? We are here.
Yes.
We are a big part of the success model for most of these companies. And so that's different. That's different. I think the lack of the sexy place was 10 years ago, right? That's not our reality now. And we even coined the term supply chain as a vector of growth. You think about it as a consumer, right? You choose products and experiences based on customer service, based on ease of delivery, speed of delivery, right? So we own that love mark very often with the customer and with the consumers. So supply chain is the place to be.
For me, a really small silver lining of the pandemic was, the whole society knew what a supply chain was.
Figured out what supply chain
That's
did,
right. When you ran out of toilet paper, it's like, who are these supply chain people, right? So
Don't know what you got till it's
I
gone.
had so many people come out of the woodwork outside of work and like, oh, you're in
That's what you
supply
do.
chain? This is what you do.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
But it's our opportunity as a as a profession to really capitalize on that.
Absolutely.
And Paul, you made the point about new employees have an expectation of a certain technology that's available when they come to work, right? If we can marry the interest and excitement around supply chain with that, I think we have a winning proposition.
Yeah. I want to hit on something Paul said and see if you and the rest of the people at the table are doing something similar. It sounded like you are purposefully bringing younger talent into the transformation team, even though they're newer, they may have less experience. Is anyone else doing that on your transformation projects?
We do some of it. We also have a rotational program, and maybe similar. But I would say maybe the number one for us is first rotation, you have responsibility, you have ownership, and you need to deliver. Because we want you to get in it right away, to keep your attention span in and really go deliver, because you bring a different perspective and really learn through it. So I would say we're really trying to build kind of a plant manager pipeline and it's a leadership development program, but for sure we want them in the transformation projects. They're different perspective. We want all perspectives, but they've been really valuable because again, a new skill sets that we didn't have.
In our case, I think every area is transforming something. So you can be the transformational center of excellence in our case, but if you are in customer service, you're doing some transformation. So not necessarily you need to be in the center of excellence to be part of the transformation. You're going to have in different parts. What I see from the new generations, like you say, guys, they like technology. They don't want to get any more in Excel 5. They are attracted to get technology, software, technology, and be contacted with customers. Something that we, in this survey, with the new generation, this rotational program, they want to be close to the customer. This is something new that we don't see in the past. Maybe in the past they used to be or like to be in the behind the scenes. Now this new generation want to be close to the customer.
All right, well, we have just a couple minutes left, and what I wanted to do before we wrap it up is just give everybody an opportunity. We'll start just as we did with the intros, left to right here. What are some pieces of advice, lessons learned on transformation programs that you'd like to share? Either things that, here's an idea that worked great, or, hey, here's something we tried, maybe it didn't work so great, and there were some lessons from that.
Yeah, maybe just a couple that I would say is, we've talked about a little bit, really clear what's the problem you're trying to solve. It was fascinating to me in one transformation project with very talented people. Everybody went away with their piece, came back with their solutions, and like 9 out of 10 people weren't actually solving the problem, right? So like problem to solve, that was a big one. The other key learning for us in the safety transformation project we were doing was, in order to implement this new technology, we needed to do some setup at all the customers with some labels and some QR codes. And our original thought was, well, we'll have the sales commercial team install them when they're at the customers. And post-COVID, that commercial world was really challenging, right? So, there's open accounts and there's turnover and they have to sell, and it was pressure to that. For us, my learning is we took way too long to pivot. We had weeks and months of just reporting the number, and it wasn't moving. And we would talk about it, and it was the same stuff. We pivoted finally with a fantastic idea from our team, was to hire our retired fleet delivery specialists for 6 months to come back and install them. And it was a great idea, but we took way too long to pivot. So I think you got to be resilient and keep trying on stuff, but you also have to make a call, like, this is not working, we're doing something else.
For my advice, I'm going to actually repeat something that several people have said throughout this conversation. I'm just going to use a different word to describe it. Be close to the gemba. It's a Japanese word. Means, the place where the work is being done. So in all that we do, you can't forget about who is this actually affecting, and to make sure that our focus stays close to that place of work.
I love that. American Airlines, all we have to do is get on a plane.
Yeah,
That's right.
We experienced the same thing that you guys experienced.
That's right.
So that's great. I love that one. For me, transformation, there's 3 simple steps. 1 is understand the business. 2 is make a plan. 3 is execute, right? Understand the business is along the lines of what you're saying. Define the problem. What are we trying to solve here? Make the plan sounds easy, but I think what gets overlooked is doing a real thorough assessment. What are the range of options, the range of actions that we could take here, honing in on what the optimal plan is going to be, but then addressing all the things that we decided not to do. Why not? Why not? That's important also in your communications, like we were talking about earlier, because other people have other solutions, and there's more than one way to skin these cats, right? So really addressing that, I think, is super important. And then execution, it comes down to people, process, and tools. Making sure those are all lined up well, absolutely powered by high integrity master data to even augment that even further, right? The old garbage in, garbage out, artificial intelligence just amplifies those issues. So yeah, those are my 2 cents.
I think for us my learning is clear vision. That could be the broader statement. We need to be clear. Right? What is the time zone? The time it's going to be 2030. Okay, what we are going to do. The second one is work by cycles and do reflection, because not everything that you set up at the beginning is going to work by the years. So this is something that we're doing every cycle of 6 months. By the way, we are working in cycles of 90 days. Every 90 days we have a reflection. What is working well? What we should do, do an adjustment. Because otherwise you're just pushing or moving in the same mistake that you're having in every cycle. So I think clear vision again, and do this reflection, and maybe finally celebrate. It's one milestone. Let's celebrate together, because this is the only way that you maintain the team with energy. Otherwise, it's a long journey. So celebrate.
And even if a small milestone.
Correct.
Which maybe you wouldn't really normally recognize, but because it was the beginning of your transformation, it's worth it.
Correct.
So I'm going to build on the data thing, right? And assuming you created a good business case and you're going to do all this, often I found that you get stuck in, I can't do this because the data is not perfect, let's fix the data. 3 years later, we're still talking about it, right? And so I always just tell people, just start. You'll never have the data perfect at the beginning. It's impossible. If you think that, you're never going to. You will find where you need to fix the data as you do it. You will find where you need to improve it. But to do that, you actually have to start and do it and stop talking about it. And so it's like a Nike thing, just do it. That's my advice.
We'll finish up with Raquel here.
Okay. So, two thoughts. It's back to change and being intentional in the people side of change. We tend to over-index on the tech or on the solution, but really being intentional on change management and making the space, which includes resourcing,
Right.
change champions, whatever that elixir is for your company. But it matters, and enrolling the stakeholders as advocates for the change is a big one. And then the second piece, which maybe we haven't talked as much about, but is value realization. Right? So whether that's financial value or non-financial value, but create an accountability for value realization. So there is some form of a return on the investment that we're making. So it's dollars, it's time, right? But be really ferocious about establishing the value metrics, and they don't only have to be financial, but I think both are really important.
Excellent. Well, I wanted to thank all the panelists for joining us today, sharing your expertise, your experience, your insights on transformation. I wanted to thank everybody who's going to be watching this podcast, and I hope you learned something great today.
It was great. Thank you. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.